Hello, thank you for having me. I have a goal of impacting the world on a global scale, which has involved several preliminary steps, including becoming a positive influence for everyone I meet and encounter. I have found that impacting everyone around me has been necessary for my own growth because the people I interact with can influence me as well. I have successfully motivated many people to live prosperous, fulfilling lives, but I have encountered many disconnected people either under trauma or suffering from depression or doubt. They reject the most basic lessons of creating inner happiness and fulfillment. And I believe that they don't mean to do this, but instead, I believe that they do this because of loss of identity and their belief that they don't deserve to be happy. So here's my question. How can one start to believe in their own happiness, believe they deserve it, and obtain the courage and knowledge to start growing happiness and compassion for oneself when their life views have become badly misshapen by trauma, self doubt, or depression? I know that working towards something of this magnitude is one of the hardest things that one can do, and I want to help others achieve this substantial goal, people who have been lost and forgotten about. Thank you very much.
우리가 육체적인 질병을 가지고 얘기를 먼저 해보겠습니다.
Let's take an example of a physical illness.
네, 몸이 다쳤거나 많이 아픈 사람은 그것을 스스로 치료할 수가 없습니다.
If you're hurt badly or your sickness is deep, you can't really heal yourself.
그래서 의사의 도움이 필요합니다.
You need medical help.
또 건강한 사람들의 보살핌도 필요합니다.
You also need to be nurtured or cared for by healthier people.
그러나 응급치료가 끝이 나면
But after the emergency or initial kind of, intervention is done,
스스로의 노력도 필요합니다.
you also have to make an effort as a patient to get better.
일단 재활치료가 필요하죠.
You need rehabilitation.
그래서 병이 어느 정도 나았다고 합시다.
Say that you have recovered somewhat.
그러면 다시 또 병들지 않아야 합니다.
Then you have to prevent another instance of that sickness coming back.
본인이 건강을 위해서 계속 운동을 하든지 음식을 조심하든지 안전에 주의하든지 이런 노력을 해야 합니다.
You have to make an effort to do that, taking care of what you eat, continuously exercising, and taking care of your own physical safety.
그래서 병이 나지 않도록 하는 것이 매우 중요합니다.
So it's important to prevent from the sickness from coming back.
정신적인 질환도 마찬가지입니다.
Similar with a mental illness.
우울증이라든지 또는 조울증이라든지 트라우마가 심하든지 하는 것은 정신적으로 의사의 도움이 필요로 하는 그런 조금 중병에 속한다고 볼 수 있습니다.
So mental illness such as depression, some kind of deep-seated trauma, I think these are conditions that does need medical intervention.
물론 가만히 내버려둬도 일부는 자연 치료가 될 수도 있습니다.
Of course, you can let it be, and some of those cases might kind of heal themselves.
그러나 일부는 더 악화될 수가 있습니다.
But other cases might actually get worse without intervention.
그래서 의사의 도움이 필요하다는 거예요.
That's why you need doctor's help.
여기 첫 번째는 응급치료로서는 약물치료도 필요합니다.
That's why I said, intervention, especially of an emergency kind, you need some kind of medical intervention or some kind of drugs to help it.
왜냐하면 신경이 지나치게 예민해져 있기 때문에 조금 안정을 시키는 이완제가 필요합니다.
You might need to kind of calm your nerves, do something in order to calm the immediate kind of symptoms.
그리고 일부 상담 치료가 필요합니다.
And also engage in some types of talk therapy.
마음에 맺힌 것에 대해서 일부 해소를 해야 합니다.
Allow what's in there in your mind, that's been coagulated to melt and let it go.
그렇다고 이것은 완치가 된 것은 아닙니다.
But that doesn't mean you're healed.
더 이상 악화되는 것을 방지하거나 심한 것을 조금 완화시켜주는 정도의 역할입니다.
Because you're just kind of mollifying the surface symptoms and maybe preventing it, from getting worse.
그다음부터는 이제 스스로 이제 이 재활치료처럼 자가치료가 필요합니다.
But afterwards, you need to kind of self-heal. You need to make an effort to heal yourself.
여기에 이제 어떤 부처님의 가르침이나 이런 수행 지도가 필요하다고 볼 수 있습니다.
And I think this is where, Buddha's teachings or kind of guided practice, in spirituality comes into.
부다의 가르침은 자기가 자기를 치료하는 자가치료에 들어가기 때문에 너무 병이 악화된 사람에게는 이게 효과가 떨어진다고 볼 수 있습니다.
So Buddha's teaching really is kind of fits into more of a self-help, right? Self-healing. So it doesn't apply as well to those people who are already deep in their kind of mental illness crisis as a clinical matter.
부다의 가르침은 이런 어떤 정신적인 질환의 환자를 치료하는 게 아니고 정신은 건강한데 이게 무지로 인해서 이렇게 괴로움이 야기되는 이것을 치료하는 법입니다.
So Buddha's teaching is not, suited properly to those who are actually mentally ill from a medical sense. But to those who are not mentally ill, but however, they're suffering as a result of their ignorance, that's when Buddha's teaching really comes in.
또 이렇게 병이 재발되지 않도록 항상 정신적으로 건강을 유지하도록 하는 방법이라고 볼 수 있습니다.
Or as a way of a preventative practice in order to keep yourself always mentally healthy and bright.
그렇기 때문에 너무 트라우마가 심하거나 우울증이 심한 사람에게는 이것이 효과가 많이 떨어집니다.
Therefore, Buddha's teaching is not as effective to those people who are deep in their trauma or in depression, who are actually mentally ill.
그러니까 응급치료 수준은 병원의 도움을 좀 얻어야 됩니다.
That's right. If you're in that state, people need to get medical help.
그러니까 자기가 지금 사람들을 이렇게 육상이라든지 농구라든지 배구라든지 어떤 사람을 자기가 지금 훈련시키고 싶은데 이 사람이 다친 상태라면 일단은 보호가 중요하지 현재 훈련이 중요한 게 아니라는 거예요.
For example, what I'm trying to get at it, if you're a coach, right, and you want to train a runner in track or basketball player, to do better. However, if that player has a broken leg, is sick, then that player needs nurturing, care, and healing, not more training.
그러니까 그런 환자에게 보살펴야 될 환자에게 어떤 방법을 가르치는 것은 좋은 결과가 나오지 않습니다.
So you can't teach patient, somebody who actually has a physical disablement or a broken leg to shoot basketball better. That person needs care at this point.
그것은 받아들일 수 있는 지금 조건이 안 돼 있기 때문에 그렇습니다.
That's because that person is not a state to actually be coached.
그리고 이 아무리 좋은 일이라도 내가 남에게 영향을 끼쳐야 되겠다라고 생각을 하면 그것은 욕심에 해당이 됩니다.
And also another point is that no matter how good it is that you are doing, the deed, if underlying motivation is that you want to exert an influence, even though it's positive to others, that actually falls into the realm of desire and greed.
우리가 그런 노력을 해도 그것이 효과가 있을 수도 있고 효과가 없을 수도 있다는 거예요.
What I'm saying is that you can do your best, but the end result could be that you exert good influence or not.
내가 많은 노력을 했는데 영향력이 내가 원하는 만큼 끼쳐지지 않으면 내가 실망을 하게 됩니다.
That's because you tend to get disappointed if the amount of impact you see is not commensurate with the amount of effort that you think you put it in.
이 좋음을 알아주지 못하는 타인을 탓하거나 원망하거나 아니면 내 능력 부족을 탓하거나 이런 문제가 발생합니다.
Then you start blaming others for not recognizing the good that I did for them, or blame yourself for not being good enough to exert that influence.
그러면 내가 괴로워질 위험이 있습니다.
And that causes the danger of you suffering.
그래서 좋은 일도 이렇게 영향을 끼치고자 하는 욕구를 불러일으키면 이것이 나에게 괴로움으로 돌아올 위험이 있다는 겁니다.
Therefore, even good deeds, if that's kind of driven by a desire to exert a certain influence, can actually boomerang back at you with as a cause for suffering.
그러니까 이 법이 좋으니까 너도 이 법을 해보면 좋을 거다 하는 관점에서 최선을 다하지 영향을 끼쳐야 되겠다 이 생각은 내려놔야 나도 좋고 남도 좋고 삶에 부담이 없어집니다.
So, if you find something to be good, this practice to be good, and you're trying to kind of show how good it is and try to go about in that sense as a sense of sharing, that's great. But if you're trying to exert an influence, then it becomes a different matter.
우리가 명상을 할 때 이 생각을 멈추게 되면 호흡이 저절로 알아차려집니다. 호흡을 알아차려야지라고 욕구를 불러일으키면 호흡이 알아차려지지 않을 때 나는 명상을 지금 잘못하고 있다, 못하고 있다 이렇게 자책하는 마음이 일어난다는 거예요.
So in meditation, taking an example of meditation, if you pause everything else, if your other physical activities, your mental activities, then the awareness of the breath comes to you automatically. However, during meditation, you actually strive with certain intention to be aware of the breath. That is, you're being led by desire to do something.
이 수행의 관점에서 봤을 때 나쁜 일을 멈추게 하는 것은 비교적 쉽습니다.
So from a spirit practitioner perspective, stopping somebody from doing a bad thing is relatively easy.
좋은 일을 욕심내서 하는 것을 멈추게 하는 게 가장 어렵습니다.
However, what's far more difficult is stopping oneself or others engaging in good thing out of a desire to do good.
여러분들이 부부 간의 갈등이나 부모 자식 간의 갈등이 다 좋은 일을 지나치게 욕심내서 하기 때문에 생기는 일입니다.
So any conflicts that you usually experience between a married couple or between a parent and child is probably a result of wanting to do too much good for each other.
내가 한 좋은 일에 대한 칭찬이 또는 상대의 알아줌이 돌아오지 않기 때문에 지치게 되는 겁니다.
And you get tired or angry because you're not getting back as much praise or recognition for the good that you think you did.
이 좋음을 다만 행할 뿐이지 남을 위해서라는 것에 너무 집착을 하게 되면 자기를 다시 괴롭히게 된다.
So when doing good, you're just doing good. But if you attach the postscript of you're doing good for others, then you're actually obsessing over the other's part of that equation.
자, 이 문제에 대해서 더 추가적으로 질문을 하거나 자기 소감이 있으면 얘기해 주시기 바랍니다.
And anybody else who wants to share your thoughts on this point?
Yes, thank you for your response earlier. I found it to be very helpful. I coach those that, I coach people, and there are people that I encounter that have issues, and sometimes people ask for advice, and now give them my advice. Sometimes they act on the advice, sometimes they don't. And in a sense, it is a selfish desire because I do so in order to improve my own quality of life, to make my own life better. But I do it because I don't want to deal with the problems of others, because I don't want the problems of others to reduce my own quality of life. So I try to help them in effort to make my own life better so that I won't have to deal with it. And my hope is for things to get better. And at the same time, I'm not expecting anything. I have faith that things will work out for the individual, but that faith is kind of separated from me putting time into them. I know what would make more sense for me is to let it go, which is also difficult to do. But as all things that are bad come into one's life, there is just kind of embracing it and letting it pass. It's just for some people, I have the experience of seeing the suffering of some people. It just never ends. And a lot of that time in my experience has been spent ignoring the bad words and habits of others. And it's, from my experience, something that you just have to get good at doing.
네, 우선 좋은 생각과 좋은 마음씨를 갖고 있어서 저도 듣기에 좋습니다.
It's really a pleasure to hear from you because you hold good thoughts, you have good minds.
다만 남을 돕는다는 것도 너무 내 중심적이 될 위험이 있다는 겁니다.
All I'm trying to say is that your desire to help others, there's a danger that it becomes a self-centric desire.
그래서 가능하면 도움을 요청할 때 도와주는 것이 가장 좋습니다.
So the best strategy to tackle this is only give help when others ask.
또 내가 보기 어렵겠다 싶을 때는 이런 도움을 주고 싶은데 어떠냐 하고 상대의 의사를 물어보고 돕는 것이 좋습니다.
And also, if you see somebody struggling, ask them before help, or ask them whether they like to accept help.
사랑하는 사람이나 부모 자식 간에는 대부분 그냥 자기가 그냥 막 해주잖아요. 상대 의사도 안 물어보고.
But especially between families or between loved ones, you don't ask whether you can give help or not. You just do it.
그것이 갈등의 원인이 됩니다.
And that becomes a source of conflict.
한국의 할머니들은 손자들에게 막 계속 먹어라 더 먹어라 이렇게 해서 할머니하고 손자하고 갈등이 아주 심한 경우가 많아요.
So there are a lot of cases in Korea in which elderly Korean grandmas just keep feeding their grandsons or granddaughters, and that creates a lot of conflict.
그리고 애들이 살이 쪄서 통통하면 아주 좋아하고요.
And they like to see their grandkids, a little plump.
오히려 홀쭉하면 걱정을 하고.
And they become really worried if they're skinny.
이게 다 자기 보기에 그렇다는 거죠.
But this is all their self-centric perspective.
우리가 다른 문화나 다른 사람을 볼 때 이렇게 자기 주관으로 불쌍하게 여기는 것은 조심해야 된다는 거예요.
So we always have to kind of watch out from regarding others as needy based on our projection of our needs.
그러니까 우리가 남을 돕는 것은 첫째 좋은 일인데 이런 부작용이 있으니까 조금 유의해야 된다 이런 뜻으로 말씀드리는 겁니다.
So I'm only sharing this just to say that helping others is definitely a good thing, but you always have to be wary of the side effects that might come from that.
그러니까 나의 어떤 호의를 상대가 받아들이지 않을 때는 대부분 두 가지입니다.
The reason when others don't really take your positive intent to help at face value, there are two reasons for that.
첫째, 본인이 원하지 않기 때문에.
One, they don't want your help.
두 번째는 어떤 그런 상처라든지 어떤 상태로 아직 이게 받아들일 이게 지금 상태가 아니기 때문입니다.
Second, they're not ready to receive help because of some trauma or other issues.
그러니까 그것을 실망하지 말고 왜 이런 문제가 생길까 하고 조금만 연구해 보는 게 필요하다. 조금 연구해 보는 게 필요하다.
So in those cases, instead of being disappointed, it's important to kind of investigate that with curiosity.
네, 그러면 아마 좋은 영향력을 끼치는 또 영향력이 넓어지는 그런 사람이 될 것 같아요.
And that will lead you to become that person that exerts really good influence throughout.
또 그 일을 하는 내가 항상 기뻐야 합니다.
And you always have to also be happy engaged in such work.
내가 기쁜 것이 다른 사람에게 가장 영향력을 끼칠 수 있는 기초입니다.
because your sense of happiness in yourself is a foundational of kind of drive to make others, to influence others in positive way.
네, 이 일을 기쁜 마음으로 하시기 바랍니다.
And I wish you continue engaged in your work with a very pleasing and glad mind.
네.